Good afternoon, students. Welcome to week 2. And this week we're going to go over a very interesting story called The Yellow Wallpaper. And this story takes place at the turn of the century. And so here you have a wife who is kind of depressed. And so the doctor takes his wife out into the country so that she can relax. And the wife is very depressed. And so the husband, who's a doctor, decides that, maybe some country air out in the, open, would be good for her, away from all the stress of the city. So they go to a cottage, out in the country. But the husband's very controlling, and he controls everything that she does, where she goes, what she does. He's the boss. He decides even if she says, but I don't feel like going out in the country, I want to do something else too, whatever. She can't do that because, the wife in those days obeys what the husband says, especially if the husband's a doctor. That even gives him even more authority if she's ill or something like that. So she would have no say in what she does. So she stays cooped up in this country home. And meanwhile, the husband gets to go out. He gets the variety of seeing patients and stuff like that, but she has nothing to do. And he says, he would say, well, you're too sick to do anything, so you got to stay in the house and rest. So she stays in the house, has nothing to do except staring at the wallpaper and staring at the wallpaper until finally she feels as if the wallpaper starts to come alive. So if the wallpaper has, let's say the wallpaper has animals, or it has some kind of motif. Well, she thinks that the whatever is on the wallpaper is coming for her. It's all coming alive. Obviously, when you look at your wallpaper, it's not going to suddenly come alive, but she thinks it does. So she starts to hallucinate her reality. And so that's what this story is about, the descent into madness of one woman's depression. And her husband doesn't understand any of it and thinks that just all you have to do is just rest. So today I'm gonna talk more about the about Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper. So today we will explore Charlotte Perkins Gilman short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, first published in 1892. The story is a landmark in feminist literature and is widely studied for its critique of 19th century medical practices, the oppression of women, and the consequences of enforced passivity and isolation. It is also an example of a psychological horror story using first-person narrative to immerse the reader in the protagonist's mental deterioration. The narrator, an unnamed woman, is taken to a secluded mansion by her husband, John, for what is prescribed as a rest cure for her depression and nervous condition. She is confined to a room with yellow wallpaper and forbidden from working, writing, or engaging in any kind of stimulating activity. Over time, she becomes obsessed with the wallpaper's intricate patterns and begins to see a woman trapped behind it. Her mental state deteriorates as she identifies with the imprisoned figure, ultimately leading to her psychological breakdown. Themes: gender roles and patriarchy. The story critiques the patriarchal assumptions of the time, particularly in medicine and society. John's control over his wife's treatment and his dismissal of her opinions highlights the systemic silencing of women. Mental health and the rest cure. Gilman critiques the 19th century rest cure approach, which demanded inactivity and isolation for women diagnosed with hysteria or depression. The treatment intended to restore health exacerbates the narrator's illness. The wallpaper becomes a symbol of the narrator's mental and social confinement. Her identification with the trapped woman inside the wallpaper reflects the lack of freedom experienced by women at that time period. The story blurs the lines between reality and hallucination, emphasizing the psychological impact of oppression and isolation. The yellow wallpaper represents the constraints placed on women, societal expectations, and the mental struggles that result from suppression. Its chaotic patterns reflect the narrator's growing agitation and mental fragmentation. The woman in the wallpaper, a symbol of the narrator's own entrapment and desire for freedom. As the narrator becomes more obsessed, she identifies completely with the woman in the wallpaper. The room itself, with barred windows and a locked door, mirrors the narrator's social and emotional confinement. The story is told as a series of journal entries, allowing readers to experience the narrator's psychological decline intimately. Her perceptions become increasingly distorted, reflecting her mental state and creating tension between reality and imagination. And so here the story is told from a first-person perspective, and they use the literary device of an unreliable narrator. So that adds to the madness. Edgar Allan Poe is very famous for using unreliable narrator to add madness to his horror stories. Imagery and language. Gilman uses vivid, unsettling descriptions of the wallpaper and the room to evoke discomfort and a sense of entrapment. The feminist, the yellow wallpaper is a critique of gendered oppression, particularly the dismissal of women's voices and autonomy. The narrator's descent into madness serves as a warning about the consequences of denying women agency over their own minds and bodies. Gilman's story sparked conversations about mental health treatment for women and challenged traditional assumptions about female fragility. And so discussion questions for this week's forum, week 2 forum. How does the wallpaper serve as a metaphor for the narrator's mental and social confinement? What does the narrator's relationship with her husband reveal about gender dynamics in the story? How does the story depict the dangers of medical and societal control over women's lives? How does Gilman create suspense and horror through the narrator's unreliable perspective? In what way can the story be read as a call for women's independence and expression? Even today, the yellow wallpaper resonates as a story about mental health, autonomy, and the consequences of dismissing individual voices. Because when you dismiss someone's voice and they don't feel heard, then they feel like they have no purpose. So why should they bother to stay sane? So this encourages readers to consider how societal pressures, gender roles, and lack of agency impact psychological well-being. So what would you do if you were trapped in a room, a locked room, day after day after day? It's kind of like solitary confinement. It's like in prison. A lot of prisoners, if you put them in solitary confinement for, say, months at a time, years at a time, they go nuts, they go crazy. And that's very well documented. So this is a very, it's kind of a, when I read the story, you know, the yellow wallpaper, it felt horrible. You just felt uncomfortable. And so you feel her madness. You feel her descending into, she loses her grip on reality. And then she just descends into a fantasy world where she just doesn't understand where she is anymore. Perhaps she escaped into madness. Perhaps she descended into madness as an escape from her oppression, as an escape from her depression. And so what does the wallpaper represent? And so that's what we will, and so everyone's interpretation of this poem, not this poem, of this short story will be different based on your life each person's or your life experiences. And so what I'd like for you to do is to think about, how would you feel if someone locked you in a room and you went nuts? You had nothing to do, not allowed to eat, you're not allowed, there's no internet, no phone, no, you can't just go, oh, this is my phone, I'm gonna go look at my, no phone, no radio, no TV, just you, silence, and the wallpaper. Your only distraction is that colorful wallpaper. And let's say the wallpaper does have a picture of a beautiful lady sitting with flowers or something like that. But that beautiful lady in that wallpaper, she can't move, she can't go anywhere, she's painted and she's just stuck in that wallpaper. Would you start to think you're that woman in the wallpaper? And that your soul is sliding into such madness that you are that painted woman in the wallpaper? How would you feel if for months at a time you sat in a room with absolutely nothing to do? At first, you might think that's a great vacation, right? You don't have to look after the kids. You don't have to go to work. Hey, I just sleep my time away. So my guess is at first, it's great. But then after a while, when it starts to like solitary confinement, that because the human mind needs distraction, needs something to do. It's good to rest. It's good to have nothing to do for a little while. But what if this goes on like day after day after day after day, month after month after month after month, year after year after year? Then what? Then what would happen to you? How would you react then? I would imagine the first week or two, hey, I love this rest. And then it goes month after month after month. Would it drive you nuts? Would the boredom alone drive you nuts? And she had no choice. It's not like she had a choice to go outside or had a choice. There's no telephone either, by the way. No telephone, no conversations with anybody. And there's no maids who's going to come in and talk with you. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And outside, no noise, okay? You don't have any noise outside to distract you either. Just silence and that wallpaper. Month after month after month after month. How would you feel? That's the question I posed this week in the Week 3 Forum. And that's part of the fun of literature, empathy. You get to empathize. What would it be like for me that happened to me? And that is the beauty of literature, is to be able to put yourself into the shoes of that character and imagine yourself in that way. And that is, for me, why I love literature, because I love to empathize with my characters. And when I write my books, I also empathize with my characters. And I want my readers, when I write my books, to also empathize with my characters so that they can learn. In other words, part of the fun of literature is getting outside yourself, getting outside of your family, your way of looking at things, and then being able to see how someone else feels. And that adds richness to your own life, to your own perspectives, so that you're not so narrow-minded that you only think one way, you only have one opinion, or you only have one perspective. In order to have a healthy society, we need to be able to understand the other side without getting angry, without saying, hey, you're not as good a person as I am, or you're inferior because you think a different way. No. To have a good society, a healthy society, we have to be able to hear the other side and smile about it. What would Jesus do? Did Jesus just hang out with just one portion of society? Or did Jesus hang out with all the different kinds of people and learn all the different perspectives? That's what Jesus did. So we want to be like Jesus. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. If you like this video, you can subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel. So I hope you enjoy this little journey into horror of this particular in the Yellow Wallpaper. So I'm going to end this video now and have a great day.